Hey everybody, it's that time again. Going to see if we can break a bit more on this old top cover. See where we get to. So carrying on from last night, I have got the draft control spring and plunger and all that assembly put in there. Put those two hex head bolts, they're not tight. They're just holding everything in place at the moment. I always like to put plenty of oil inside this casting here before putting it all together, because that doesn't get any lubrication from anywhere and it does get rusty and it does get tight. So also I've put a bit of anti-seize on the thread there. You don't rely on that thread to keep things tight. There's a little set screw that screws in there, so it doesn't matter if you put anti-seize on the thread, and it just makes life easier for the next person down the line. So next step is we'll see if we can get these control cams back in. I have kind of straightened out that bent tab there. That's straight enough for a job in the country, so that'll do. That's position control. And this one is draft control. You know it's draft control because it's got that plunger on it, which pokes through that little hole there. And movement of that spring and the plunger inside there pushes on that, and it keeps the depth constant when you're working with draft control. Anyway, so did I mention the before I put those in, the pivot shaft for these control cams goes in through a little 3/8 tapered plug that you have to screw out from the outside there. That's the only way you can get them in or out, because this shaft is too long to go in any other way, so it has to go in through there, and that's held into place by that little set screw there. And once we got those in, we'll look at putting the ram cylinder back in. I put new rings on this, and focus, come on. Right, put new rings on this, and believe it or not, that's exactly the same as putting piston rings on for anything else. Same tool, same methods. You make sure the slots aren't lined up, because unlike an engine, they don't really rotate much over time, so you need to put them in staggered right from the start. So that should be good for a few thousand hours. Anyway, that's the next step. First step, get all this lot oiled up and put that back together. Okay, I've got the two control cams in there and slid that mounting pin, got it nice and oiled up, slid that mounting pin across, holding the two in place. It's a little bit fiddly, but it's not that difficult. You can see here on the back of the position control there's a roller which lines up with a cam there on the lift arm. One of the reasons we need to adjust these two when we've got it all back together is to make sure that that roller is running nice and centrally on that cam there. As I said earlier, the draft control, the plunger that's attached to the spring inside here, as it moves in and out, as the pressure on the top link changes, it pushes that in and out, and of course that moves the control lever inside to either increase or reduce pressure in the piston and raise or lower the linkage according to the load. So that's how that bit works. Right, next stage, once we've got that in, is to put the piston back in. So now I'll just get that oiled up, I'll put new O-ring in there, and get that ready to reattach. Well, piston is in, new rings are in. I did give the cylinder a very quick hone, but there is no easy way to get that piston in other than using the same piston ring compressor you'll use when you're rebuilding an engine. It just makes life so much easier. In a few minutes I'm also going to refit the quadrant in here. If you look at this, this is an old top cover and it has a countersunk hole there, and you have a little socket head countersunk screw which drops down into there and screws into the quadrant to stop it, keep it in place, stop it rotating, stop it from pulling out. This top cover had a quadrant in it which wasn't the original, and it had the later type of retainer for the quadrant, but it was using this screw which doesn't hold anything tight and it just allows everything to slop around. So I've ended up having to buy a new quadrant, and you can get them from a variety of places. You can still get them from Agco, or you can get them from any of the other manufacturers like AgriLine or Vapormatic, whatever. A lot of people still make them, but none of them make the early type that retains with this screw. All of them use the later type. And the later type is retained with this little fella here, which is just a nicely ground dowel with a little chamfer on the end and a thread in there. So the idea is that you put the quadrant in place, line it up with a hole on the quadrant, push that in, and when you need to pull it out you can screw something in there and jack it out with a screw. Not the same diameter as the little countersunk pin, so if you get a later quadrant and you've got an early top cover, there is a modification, means that you need to drill that out and ream that out to, I don't know, metric size is 9.3 millimeters. I can't remember what the imperial size is. Anyway, somebody has already done that, only they made it a little bit too big. It's not going to be the end of the world. It just means that the quadrant has room to just slop around a little bit, but still, that's what we'll have to work with. We have to work with what we've got, and that's what we've got. So we'll be using this to hold the quadrant in. Anyway, in the meantime, I'm going to get the new O-ring placed in there. I'll get the studs ready to bolt the lift cylinder in, and we'll be moving on. There was one other thing I wanted to mention just before we finish for the day. I saw this advertised online. It's the actual correct tool for adjusting that nut there. It's a, can you focus please? Made in UK, VL Churchill, MF163. That is the genuine tool used for adjusting this nut here. I often use a Facom peg spanner because it does the same job, but this is designed and built so that it fits with a limited clearance in there. It's a lot easier to use, and it is the original Massey tool that was designed for that purpose. It's not meant for cracking these off when they are really tough. This is as an adjusting tool, and it's designed and built as an adjusting tool, so you don't stick a great cheater pipe on there and lean on it as hard as you can, because it's not designed for that, and you'll just bugger everything up. So anyway, I'm not being paid by them, I'm not any real connection with them at all, but I was quite pleased to see that these special tools are still being made. They're reasonably priced, so I thought I'd have one to have a look at it. And I'll be going back to get some other stuff off them as well, because they are starting to remanufacture a lot of the old Massey tools that we need for doing these jobs. So yeah, I'll put a link in the description so you can have a look and see where I got this. And a footnote to that is that if you are going to rebuild one of these things, there are some special tools that you do need. It's not special tools that are nice to have and you can work around. And I'm sure you know someone who's, oh yeah, I did it without any of the special tools and I've done all this, that and the other, and it's still working, and I pull down houses with it every day, and I travelled to the moon and I drove to the work on it. No, they haven't. You cannot do this without special tools. Try and do it without the special gauges and you'll probably crack the top cover. And you'll crack the top cover so quick you won't even notice it's happened. Just a little word of warning there for you. If you haven't got the special tools, find someone who's got them, or just go and buy them. They're not that expensive. I think that was 30 odd quid. Plus VAT, I don't know, don't remember. But it wasn't a lot. So as they start making the new remanufacturing the internal gauges, pick them up when you can if you're planning on doing these. If not, find someone who's got them and borrow them. You won't regret it. So before I can put the studs back in to hold the lift ram on, I've got to get the nuts off the end here. 9/16 UNF, I think. Anyway, I've given them a bit of a squirt down with Boltex, and I think I will tomorrow put a bit of heat on those, get them off and put some new nuts on there, and we'll be ready to go. But I think that'll do us for today. You've had enough excitement for one day. So with that, I will say thanks very much for watching, and bye.